So let's go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Labor and Industrial Relations Committee. We will begin as a subcommittee. Oh, well, yes, we have the vice chairman here. We will go ahead, Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Mendoza.
Here.
Mendoza here. Stone. Stone here. Jackson. Leno.
Here.
Leno here. Mitchell.
Here.
Mitchell here.
Wonderful. We have a quorum. We'll go ahead and begin in sign-up order. And I'm not sure, is Senator Berrio here? Yes, he is. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move the consent calendar.
As he approaches, we will go ahead. We have a motion for the consent calendar. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mendoza.
Aye.
Mendoza I. Stone. Stone I. Jackson. Leno.
Aye.
Leno I. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mitchell I.
Can we add it now? Can we add it now? Can we add it now? Okay. We're gonna go ahead and leave the call open for missing members, and we'll go ahead and continue with Senator Berryhill. Please proceed.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I guess here we go again, huh? Kind of like Yogi Berra saying it's like deja vu all over again. And but this is not my first time coming to you with a proposal to allow a flex work week in California. I hope today, that we may agree to disagree on certain aspects of this bill, but I think that we all have in common, that we want the best for the workforce out there and to make it as accommodable as we can. So I think that we can all agree on that. Because despite what opponents to this bill will tell you, our labor laws do not give workers the ability to easily make changes to their work schedules. This bill, and I want to underscore this, is about employees, not employers. This has nothing to do with employers. This is all about employees that drive this bill, and it's about them requesting flexibility. The process in place is simply too cumbersome to work for a majority of scenarios in today's workforce, especially when the schedule changes are needed for immediate personal matters. According to the EDD, only 2% of the state's employers are currently utilizing the alternative workweek schedule option. It is ludicrous to believe only 2% of California's workers ever need to adjust their schedule to care for a sick loved one, an ailing parent, or have a personal emergency and requires immediate flexibility. This bill does include a 5-year sunset with a focus on employee protections. That would include a form produced by the DLSE that would specify the employee rights and where and who to turn to in cases of employer misconduct. Many employees in California have bargaining agreements or some other arrangement that allows for flexibility, and in no way, and I want to emphasize this, in no way would be affected by this bill. But for a segment of our workforce whose personal life could accommodate a 10-hour workday, the ability to accommodate an out-of-ordinary schedule is a cumbersome, arduous process. We are not trying to undo labor agreements. We are absolutely not giving employers the ability to force unbearable work schedules on their employees. That's simply not what this bill is all about. As we discuss this bill, it is important to acknowledge that current law has its merit and measurable amount of employee protection when it can be used in its limited form. What I believe is that with this bill, we can achieve the same goals, but to a greater extent of use. So the private sector has the same flexibility and choice for its employees as the public and union employees. What we are trying to do here is to give employees, who are now the sole focus of this bill, more control over how, when, and where their work gets done. I am so thankful to have Senator Bates here today as a joint author of the bill and to further speak to the need of SB 985.
Great. Thank you. Senator Bates.
Thank you, Senator Berryhill, and good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you for providing us the opportunity to present on SB 985. Senator Berryhill has explained how the process provided for in an existing law simply does not work for all employees and in all circumstances, and how SB 985 would provide individual employees more control over their work schedules. I would like to reinforce and expand upon the benefits that an employee-selected flexible work schedule option would provide for California employees, and in turn, the consequential value to their employers and to California's business climate. An alternative work week schedule can provide employees the ability to manage and balance their employment responsibilities along with their family and personal needs and aspirations, and we know that certainly produces in our workforce and our businesses high degree of satisfaction, which is very beneficial to the employer. An alternative work week schedule could provide an employee more time with family, less in long commutes. Like the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics flex time, employees selecting an alternative work week schedule would lead to less congestion on our streets and freeways. Reducing traffic congestion is certainly a top priority for all of us in our state and would reduce greenhouse gases and air pollution. Imagine a parent who could more effectively engage in their child's education or attend to their children's other needs with the option of an alternative to an 8-hour, 5-day work week. An alternative work week schedule could also open doors for employees who seek to advance their careers by returning to school, who might otherwise not be feasible during a conventional work week. Businesses of all sizes cite the inflexibility in California law on the flexible work week schedules as an example of California's burdensome regulatory climate and somewhat inflexible. I have heard certainly concerns from small businesses in my district, which you may have also heard similar concerns from the businesses in your district. Mr. Chair and members, SB 985 neither changes nor undermines the options that are available under existing law. What it would do is provide flexibility for individual employees who, by their own initiative, may wish to seek an alternative work week schedule that matches their personal circumstances. So just ask for your consideration and comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bates. Further witnesses?
Yeah, go ahead, Kurt.
Good morning, Chair Mendoza and members. Cal SHRM and SHRM are pleased to support SB 985, a balanced bill that would provide much-needed workplace flexibility to hardworking Californians and do so in a manner that would not affect any of the opponents of this bill or in any way change the process for employer-requested alternative workweek schedules. My name is Michael Kalt, and I'm the Government Affairs Director for Cal SHRM. SHRM is the world's largest human resource organization with 285,000 members, 23,000 of whom reside in California. Our human resources members play a unique role in the workplace in that we develop policies that balance the interests of both the employees and the employers. So we're not here testifying on behalf of the employers. What our human resource professionals repeatedly tell us is that the employees request more than anything, including over increased compensation, increased flexibility over their schedule so that they can balance their work and personal life. Towards that end, employees often ask if they can work an alternative or a compressed workweek schedule, thus providing them additional time perhaps to volunteer in their child's classroom, to coach their child's soccer team, to re-enroll in educational courses, or simply to avoid the arduous commute many of us face. Such a compressed or alternative workweek schedule is particularly important because it allows employees to work their normal number of hours, albeit in fewer days, thus avoiding the current conundrum of taking time off, but doing so on an unpaid basis. So for this reason alone, SB 985 would provide more time off to California employees than any other work time off bill that's currently out there or on the books, and do so in a manner that does not result in any loss of take-home pay. The opponents of this bill are going to come up in a moment and they're going to say probably two things. One, that California's make-up time provisions already allow that benefit. That's not entirely true. The make-up time laws are very rigid and require that they be used essentially on a one-off basis, rarely, and in a very narrow time frame. They are helpful then if an employee perhaps needs time off for a car maintenance appointment or something of that nature. They do not provide the regular scheduling predictability or flexibility that employees want so they can do these other things I just mentioned. The other argument that they will make is that this bill undercuts, or that Labor Code Section 511 already provides this process. That's also not true. Labor Code Section 511 identifies a process if employers want to request the schedule on a department-wide basis. There is currently no mechanism in place to allow an individual employee to request such a schedule. This bill would replace that omission and do so in a manner that does not impact Labor Code Section 511 at all. We believe this is a common sense approach and much more sensible than requiring employees to go through the arduous alternative workweek schedule. It's just a very quick hypo. If one of your analysts came to you and said they wanted an alternative workweek schedule, the first thing you would need to do is determine what is the work unit involved. You would probably first then need to involve or retain outside private counsel, and we thank you for that. The second thing you would need to then do, though, is prepare very detailed written disclosures that you would need to circulate to everybody in the work unit, potentially in multiple different languages. You would then have to have a special meeting, specifically for this purpose, and we all know how much employees like additional meetings. And then most importantly, you'd have to have a secret ballot election in which 2/3 of the employees' coworkers, so your analyst coworkers under the typo, would have to vote to decide if your analyst could have the schedule that works best for them. That is not a sensible approach. SB 985 provides a much more simple approach which allows the employee to request the schedule that works best for them with no reduction in take-home pay, no effect on Labor Code Section 511, and in a manner that does not affect any of the unions that are about to come up and tell you that they oppose this bill, because this bill specifically says it would not apply to any unions or public sector employers. This is an employee-driven bill simply to provide employees the same flexibility that the unions and public sector employees have. We would request an aye vote for those reasons, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll now call witnesses in support. SB 985, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Jennifer Barrera on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, also in support.
Chris McKaylee on behalf of the California Ambulance Association, also in support.
Nikki Moore with the Newspaper Publishers Association. The news cycle is not 9 to 5, and our workers would like this flexibility. We urge an aye vote.
Nicole Rice, California Manufacturers and Technology Association, and we see this as a practical solution that's suitable for the manufacturing industry. Thank you.
Catherine Austin Scott, representing the California Hospital Association, in support.
Good morning. Javier Gonzalez here on behalf of the California Restaurant Association in support.
Good morning. Brian Little for the California Farm Bureau Federation in support.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support? If not, we'll call the opposition.
I think sit here. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Caitlin Vega for the California Labor Federation, here in opposition to this measure. When the 8-hour day was reinstated under AB 60, we worked very hard to figure out ways to ensure that while we protect the 8-hour day, we also add additional flexibility to the law. Now, the 8-hour day, there's been a lot of talk about allowing workers to spend time with their family. The point of the 8-hour day is that a worker at the end of 8 hours gets to go home, and if they're not allowed to go home and be with their family, then they are paid a premium. The employer can choose to work them longer, but there's a disincentive so that that worker can get home to their family. So what we're talking about in this bill is fundamentally giving up that right to the 8-hour day, an extremely important protection. At the same time, we recognize that there is a need for flexibility, and that's why in AB 60, there were extensive negotiations between labor and management to develop the right forms of flexibility that also balanced against how important this fundamental right is. So we created makeup time, which, yes, has to be used within the same week. The idea with makeup time is that you can say, hey, I need to leave a couple hours early today. Can I work a couple hours late tomorrow or any time within that same week, and there's no overtime provided. There is nothing that requires that that be a one-off or limits it to only once. It's not intended to be a way to work an alternative schedule every single week of the year, but it is available as needed. In addition, labor and management negotiated over all of the details of this alternative workweek schedule. And let me just build on the example that was used by the proponents. You, the employer, decide a certain work unit gets to have a vote. You determine what work unit. It can be any work unit, including, and we agreed to a change in the law to clarify, it can be a work unit of one. In addition, we agreed to a change in the law that said when you hold that election, you can offer a menu of options. You can say, let's have a vote to decide whether our office should have some people on 5/8 and some people on 4/10. That's the way, in my view, you pretty much assure yourself that you will get a 2/3 vote majority to ratify, because all you're doing is offering a menu of options. You're not switching the entire unit. Now, the reason we think it's important to have this structure is because there is a tremendous financial incentive for employers to eliminate the 8-hour day. There's incredible savings you derive from that. So we tried to structure a system that would protect workers from employer coercion to waive their right to the 8-hour day, and that's how we came up with the alternative work week. The alternative workweek election, this proposal is a bill that we, as many of you know, have opposed for all of the 11 years I've been at the state Fed. Every year, we have offered to employers and to employer organizations to sit down and talk about what it is that they find problematic with the alternative workweek election. As I mentioned, we've agreed to multiple changes. We have offered a great deal more. Every issue that they have raised with us that they think is a problem, we've suggested ways to address it. None of those have been followed up on, because essentially what I think the interest is in having this be an individual right that workers waive. That's something that we do not ever feel comfortable with, because the vast majority of workers, and there was reference to the fact that this doesn't apply to union members, of course it doesn't. Our members are protected by contracts. When you see us here in Labor Committee, it is not about our members. Our members don't have to rely on the minimal standards in the Labor Code. We are here on behalf of all of the non-union workers who do. Those workers are at-will employees. They are under tremendous pressure to keep their employer happy, and if the employer says, we are financially strapped, it's going to be hard to keep you all employed, we could save a lot of money if people were to volunteer to give up the 8-hour day, it's hard to imagine workers being in a position where they can say no. That's why we believe that there should be a collective process for determining how to move toward greater flexibility. One last point I want to make, there is nothing in this bill that guarantees workers any additional flexibility. There's nothing that says you get an alternative workweek schedule if you want it, or you can request to work part-time, or you can ask for certain days, and you are entitled to that. This is an employer bill that says the employer will have the ability to decide one by one who they determine they want to give an alternative workweek schedule to if the employer asks, and who they want to deny it for if the employer asks. No additional rights for workers. For all of those reasons, and the many you have heard in the many years before on this bill, we oppose.
Who's the chair? Is it yeah, okay. Mr. Chair and members, Barry Broad on behalf of a number of unions, the Teamsters Unite Here, the Machinists, the Longshoremen, the Utility Workers Union, several others. We're opposed to this bill. Caitlin's been around on this rodeo for 11 years. I've been around on this rodeo for 30 years. I've opposed this bill in this form numerous times over the last 3 decades. Thank you. And you know, and I probably had a full head of hair when I started, and I lost it because of this bill. Anyway, no, just kidding. There were many reasons. Anyway, I think Caitlin has covered much of the issue. I want to say a couple of things. At one point in the 1990s, a bill was passed about this makeup time that allowed it to be made up in a week, a subsequent week. That was struck down by the federal courts as violating the Fair Labor Standards Act. It's simply unlawful under federal law, and it was struck down. And the reason is that you can't say you can work 38 hours in 1 week and 42 hours in the next week without getting overtime. That violates the Fair Labor Standards Act. That's why it has to be done within the week. Essentially, California overtime law can only control what happens within a work week, and we can never authorize someone to work more than 40 hours a week without getting overtime. That can never happen. So the actual issue of overtime and alternative schedules is all within a work week and a work day. So that's the outside parameter of what the state can regulate. Now, the real issue here, the core issue, and what it really comes down to is that an employer can stick anything in front of any employee, and 99% of them would sign away everything that you could possibly sign away if they're told to do that, and it appears that it's a condition of employment, or seems like the employer likes it, or you really need to be a team player, or whatever the form of coercion, however subtle or however extensive it may be. Now, you only have to witness this whole arbitration thing to see that. It's now routine for employers to require as a condition of employment, because they can, that workers sign away virtually all their rights to go to the labor commissioner, to do anything outside of an employer-controlled arbitration system. That's now permitted, and that is what they do. The law says you can't be coerced into doing it. You can't do it involuntarily. But do workers strike that thing and say this is involuntary? No, because they're handed it the first day saying, sign these papers. And that's a fact. And that's the nature of the workplace. And for every great employer, I agree that there may be fabulous employers, particularly some small employers, where this would work great. But for every one of them, there's another employer or 2 employers or 10 employers who would take advantage of this notion. And the voluntariness of it would be an illusion. And that's why we've created a system that formalizes through a secret ballot election, formalizes this consent and allows this to happen, but in a way where there's really a record. And even then, it can be flawed. But thousands and thousands of employers have somehow managed to work through the existing system over the last 50 years that it's been available, and it works fine, and they've gone to alternative work weeks, and we think that they can go to alternative work weeks without having to do what this bill does, which imperils the truth, the real, honest, actual consent of people. So with that, I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll ask all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. It's important to reiterate the fact that our opposition comes from the fact that there are millions of workers working for employers who do not want to do the right thing. Those workers do not have the protection of a union contract. This labor code protection is for those workers, and obviously we oppose it on the basis of the sanctity of the 8-hour day. So for those reasons, we're opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Mark Schock with the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation. Although farm workers do not yet have the protections of an 8-hour day and a 40-hour week, there are many agricultural workers working in packing sheds and other places that are subject to the 8-hour day and the 40-hour week. And we are concerned, as the rest of labor is, of individual workers being coerced into giving up their overtime, and we oppose the bill as well.
Thank you for your testimony. Any others in opposition, please come forward. If not, we'll go back. Senator Berryhill and Bates, would you like to respond to some of the concerns with regard to coercion, employee-driven mandates on their employees?
Yeah, we would.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, you know, for starters, folks, if you're an employer and you want to keep a good employee, you're going to do whatever it takes to keep them. So there's no reason to coerce. You're trying to help and accommodate your employees. Second of all, these unions that were just up here testifying, they don't have a dog in this fight. This bill does not affect them. They've already got their rights. This bill is, the employers have nothing to do with this bill. This is completely employee-driven. And it's when the employees come to the employer. So the employers are out of the deal here. This just doesn't affect them. What this bill is doing is we're asking for some of the same opportunities that the unions currently have in flexible work weeks. Simple as that. We will be glad to take some questions. I do have a close that we'd like to have, but at this point we'd be glad to open this thing up for any questions that you might have.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you. Yeah, this is an important discussion, and I appreciate having it. I disagree, though, on the coercion element. I think of the young people in particular I know who get jobs today. They will sign anything. They want the job. They don't want to rock the boat and don't recognize and perhaps don't have that same perception that they can fight the man, if you will, that they can come in, that they can challenge what their employer wants. The employer says, you don't like it, you can find a new job. So I disagree with that, that this is just a sort of the balance, the powers in the employee. But this is an important discussion. It's an important discussion because of the changing role of the family in the workplace today. It's an important discussion that we have along with the discussion about childcare, about predictable scheduling, about new parent leave, about paid family leave. So I don't think this is the way to go. I'm going to vote against this bill. We've heard this before, but this is a discussion that we need to have in the context, I believe, of the changing role of the family. We have 70% of women today are in the workforce. What does that mean for the family? We've got 40% of women who are the sole breadwinner for their families. What does this mean in terms of the ability to care for their families? So I don't think this is per se the answer, but it's part of a bigger discussion, and I hope that going forward we can bring the chamber and the business community to sit down at the table with labor. I'm sure that there are opportunities and will be opportunities to do so, and to address the overarching problem, which is we need to, while we modernize, we need to humanize, and we're not doing that. I don't think this bill is the answer. Certainly standing alone, I don't think so. But I appreciate the conversation, and I look forward to more of them.
Thank you for your testimony, Senator. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you. Senator Berryhill, could you please walk me through what's different between this bill and the one I believe we've already heard this year?
Well, it's very similar.
Okay.
What we heard earlier this year.
Okay. Could you walk me through what's different?
Sure.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll try to answer that. There are a couple additional changes to this bill that we think provide additional protections for employees. First off, there's always a concern, and we've heard it a couple times today, that employers could simply force this schedule upon employees. So one of the things that we've done, we looked back at the two other states that have daily overtime, and both those states allow for individual alternative workweek schedules. But both of those, that's Alaska and Nevada. And they allow them to do so, though, with some government oversight in the form of a agency-provided form, developed form, that the employee and the employer need to sign, and then it is sent into the government agency, basically have a record of how many of these schedules are being requested and how many complaints are being made. So that is one of the changes that we made in this bill, was to require that the DLSC develop such a form that employers and employees would sign to then memorialize the agreement. And it would also specifically enumerate for the employee all the rights that they are entitled to and anything that they would be waiving. And again, this only arises in the context of an employee-requested schedule, so presumably they know what they want, but it would require the employee to be told again, this is what you're giving up. So that's an added protection for the employees. And one of the themes I've seen as I've sat through a couple days of hearings now is there's a number of bills that say employers must provide notice about whether it's sexual assault leave rights or injury and illness prevention programs, which we're going to hear in a moment. this requirement would achieve that same purpose. A second thing that this bill would do would be it would provide a narrow window of time, so essentially a 5-year period, at which point the bill would automatically sunset and end. And we think that that's helpful as well, because if the concern by the people in this audience, if that were to come true, right, and within that 5-year period, the DLSC would report back to the legislature on how this program is working and how many complaints are being received. That 5-year period with annual reporting would provide an opportunity to see, is the bill working the way the proponents think that it should, or is it coming out the way the opponents thought that it would? And if it comes out the way the opponents thought that it would, and we don't think it will, but if it would automatically expire. But it would at least provide an opportunity to see, is it working? Who is this bill really benefiting? And as I mentioned, if it doesn't work, it goes away automatically. So it's not like some other bills that you would then have to repeal. It would go away automatically. So those are just a couple of the very important changes from last year, all of which are employee friendly.
Helpful, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. My friends, in my county, in Riverside County, roughly in Southwest, 50% of my constituents have to drive probably greater than 75 miles or more to go to work. So we're the workforce for Orange County. We go to San Bernardino County, we go to LA County, we go to San Diego County. When I first moved to Temecula 30 years ago, you could see one car on the I-15 freeway. Today at 4:30, it looks like the 91, for those of you familiar with the 91 freeways, like down in Southern California, probably the most congested freeway. And so I see this as a way for people to spend more time with their families, because they're going to spend 20% less time on the roads, which is going to enhance the quality of life of families, and it's going to also reduce air quality issues. It's certainly going to reduce a carbon footprint, which I know is very important to many members of the legislature. And then there was a mention that it's not a waiver of rights, but a granting of rights to employees to request an alternative work week. And it's not going to usurp any union contracts. This is a private sector motivated bill. And we heard an argument that labor law prevents the making up from one week to another. To me, that supports this bill. It adds more flexibility for somebody that needs to take off time to take their child to the doctor without losing any hours, because they have to make their house payment, they have to make their car payments, they have to make their insurance payments. I like the fact that this has a 5-year sunset. And I really do appreciate, all the unions that have come up and have opposed the bill. And I think the concern, is that they're afraid it's going to be successful, that a lot of people are going to embrace these 10-hour weeks. It gives them an extra full day to either spend with their families, or there's a lot of cash-strapped people in my county that work 2 jobs or 3 jobs. This allows them to go get another part-time job in order to keep their families whole. So I'm going to support the bill, and I know it's been heard many, many times before, and I'm not optimistic that it's going to be passing today. But I know there's a lot of folks out there in the private sector that would love to have this opportunity. And it occurs in other states. Why should we stand out as being the one that doesn't allow it? I want to do what I can to enhance the quality of life of all my constituents. And you know what? And I know you've written in a way in which you don't think there's going to be any coercion, and probably with 98% of the employers, there probably won't be coercion. I think, Senator, your comments are right. When you have good employees, you want to do what you can to keep them. But if you have a lot of employees and you're putting a lot of coercive requirements on them, they have an opportunity to unionize, right, if they're not happy. So I think with that protection and the protection that we're going to review this in 5 years makes it an attractive bill that I think we should give it a shot. And if the legislature feels that a 5-year sunset is too long, let's give it a 2-year sunset and see if that doesn't make the case that this is a good program or a bad program. And we can, cut our losses in 2 years if things are out of control and employees are being taken advantage. But based on the testimony that I've heard respecting both sides, I'm going to be honored to move your bill. If you'd like to close.
I'll just say
Did you want to-
one thing.
Go ahead.
Colleagues, just one comment in closing before the principal
Hang on
author.
one sec, Senator
Oh, I'm
Leno
sorry,
wants to
I'm
speak.
sorry.
I thought he
Senator
was
Leno.
yielding to me before, so.
We would be disappointed if we didn't hear from the senator.
You know, we're all part of the theater. And yes, we've had this bill presented here multiple times. Yes, we've had a similar conversation to this one multiple times. I would agree with Senator Jackson, it's all of value. Of particular value for me, given that I have some loss of memory between the presentation of this bill, is just to hear the recounting of how the 8-hour workday, 40-hour work week came into being. The negotiations between labor and management that wrote the current rules that this would amend, and why we created the 8-hour workday. And so that's a good foundation for this discussion. I know I have said this before, probably to you, Senator.
A number of times.
Yes, because you have repeatedly said this is an employee-driven bill.
Yes.
And employers have nothing to do with it. But then when you look at the list of all those who are supporting the bill and the long line of folks who came, they're not worker voices. So if this is an employee-driven bill and this is not about employers, that would not be the case. It just wouldn't be the case.
You know, if we had a flexible work week, we would have some employees here probably.
With all due respect, that's a somewhat flip comment because I've
it's
sat
true.
in this committee for many, many years now, and we have long lines of employees who give up their workday to get on buses to travel cross-state to get their voice heard in this building. So when they want to be here, they sacrifice and they come. They're not here today because this is an employer-driven bill. And the fact of that is very clear in the Legislative Council's digest. It says, this bill would establish an overtime exemption for an employee-selected flexible work schedule. That's what this is about, overtime exemption. Because of course, this can happen currently. There's nothing prohibiting, as has already been stated, but there would be the premium pay for someone working more than 8 hours a day. That's what this is about. And I completely respect, we'll disagree on this as many, well, unfortunately, this may be the last time I get to hear this bill. So it will probably be my last comment on it as well. So.
Well, we agree to disagree on that because, you know, we believe that this is an opportunity for families to spend as much as 50 extra hours a week with their kids. It is an opportunity to keep cars off the road. It is an opportunity for the employees to make the requests and not the employers. So this bill, as was mentioned by Michael, will sunset in 5 years. And to Senator Stone's point, if you guys would like to see it shorter, we can certainly work that deal out. So I think it would make a world of difference for Californians if it proves not to be needed, underutilized. You know, it will either sunset or it'll just go away. Cal Sherm is speaking for thousands of workers it represents. Senator Bates and I speak for people in our districts. We want to make sure all California workers have the ability to find a schedule that accommodates their needs. The unions that were up here just now, they have no dog in this fight. It doesn't affect them. They've already got their rules. We're asking for some of the same opportunities in the private sector. This bill is about giving California workers choice. They know best what schedule works for them, not the state of California. Statistics prove the current system does not work, or it would be utilized by more than 2% of the time, in my opinion. While organized labor may want to represent every worker in California, they simply don't. There are hundreds of thousands of non-union employees in California. I respect the hard work my opponents do for the labor unions. I really do. But I want to be clear. This bill does not impact any of the folks they represent. No one testifying in opposition of this bill today would actually be impacted. the unions, as I mentioned, don't have a dog in this fight. So in conclusion, as a body, we have tried to improve workplace situations for our workplace with increasing the minimum wage, very recently, longer lead time on work schedules, transgender bathrooms, and a host of other areas to make things easier for workers. This bill falls into that category, improving working conditions. It should be seen as just one more tool in the toolbox for our employees, and I urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Bates.
Just a quick comment. I'd like to comment on what Senator Jackson said. Very, very important. I am supportive of this bill, and I think colleagues, we really need to take a look at the number of times that there's been an attempt to make this adjustment. That speaks millions of words to the fact that what we currently have doesn't work for a lot of people. I don't have a problem with employer-driven legislation, because employers, small businesses, which I have many, many in my district, are the economic engine of our state and our nation. They're the ones that create the jobs, the opportunities, and the wages that provide quality of life for employees. So I don't think we should close our eyes to a need here, or it wouldn't be coming forward 15 times over the last 10 years. Take a look at that, and I think that's what Senator Jackson's saying. We've had a very robust discussion about the protections of employees. Very, very important. We've all been one at one time. But certainly let us listen to when employers probably are saying they have a number of employees coming forward asking for this, but the laborious process they have to go through to award one employee some flexibility is beyond their reach. So I say, let's open our hearts, our minds, and our voices. Let's gather again and have some sort of a discussion with employees and employers so we can find something that flexes better. That is why this bill will come forward again, but we would hope in its newest form it will be a new consensus from the very important legs on the stool of economic opportunity and quality of life in our state. So I am very supportive of this at this time. If it's not good enough, we're going to try again. I know you all know that, and Mark will have you come back, and perhaps if you're out there as an employer, you can come back and talk about what's working and not working. And I think you'll be a very important voice because you've been through this so many times. So with that, I would ask for an aye vote. And thank you for all the comments. Very, very important.
Thank you for your closing statements. We have a motion. We'll have a roll call vote now, and this will go to appropriations if it passes.
Motion is due pass to appropriations. Mendoza. Stone.
Aye.
Stone, aye. Jackson. No. Jackson, no. Leno.
No.
Leno, no. Mitchell. Mitchell, no.
Okay. We'll leave the roll open.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your testimony today.
Appreciate it.
Okay.